I'm Christine. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, as you can see by the title, I'm here to chat about 3 new contemporary romance releases that just dropped, and I binged them all. So if you know me, you know I love to stay up with current releases. I love reading books as soon as they come out. It helps me feel like I'm staying on top of like my ever-growing TBR. I think all of us have such long TBRs, and I have found that it's just easier for me if I stick to those like anticipated new releases. I read them as soon as they come out, or like as soon as I am obviously able to. And like it just helps me feel like I'm staying on top of it because you know the following week there's going to be new releases coming out that then I'm going to want to jump into those ones as well. So like this just works for me. So it is now Friday afternoon / into evening when I'm filming this, which means it is April 7th. Had to think about that one for a minute. So these 3 new releases did just drop yesterday, which was Thursday, April 6th. I'm going to try to get this video edited and up for everyone to watch. Hopefully on Saturday you can catch this, if not Sunday. So the 3 new releases that dropped on April 6th was Coach by Devney Perry, The Summer We Fell by Elizabeth O'Rourke, and If This Is Love by Julie E. Ann. So I have read from all of these authors in the past. In fact, Devney Perry and Elizabeth O'Rourke in particular, I have read their entire backlists. So like anytime they have a new release, I'm jumping into those immediately. The Julie E. Ann one I was excited for as well. I have only read a handful of her books in the past. Sometimes there's hits and like one has been a miss for me, but I was super excited for this one because I was actually able to meet her in Denver last week when I went to the Readers Take It Denver signing. So she signed my book. She actually had these out as an early release. Here is the art that she had for it as well. So yeah, she had copies of this out early on her table because like the book was coming out the week after the Denver signing. So I did already have a physical copy of this one. And I just love the colors on here and like the horse because this is like her first, I think, Western cowboy style romance. So yeah, very excited to chat about this one. Basically for these, I'm going to chat about the 3 books that I read. I'm going to give you like a synopsis first off for each book, which give you a little bit more than what the blurb tells you for all of them. I'll give you my thoughts and my review as well as my rating for each of them. Of course, if you ever want to see more of my thoughts or my full review on any of these, I do go more into depth on my Goodreads, which is of course linked in the description of this video because those reviews are up already too. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the books. And so I'm just going to go by how I read them in order. So starting off with Coach by Devney Perry. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I have read all of Devney Perry's books, all her Willa Nash pen name books. Like I'm obsessed with her. I love her books so much. So anytime there's a new release, I jump on that immediately. And so Coach is actually a sports romance, and it's the first book in her new series, which is the Treasure State Wildcats. So this one I was excited for right from the start because it has all of the tropes that I love. So it is former best friends turned second chance-ish. So they like met in college, they were best friends, they had like a kiss and an almost moment before life got in the way and tore them apart. So that's where she's going at it for like the second chance aspect. But they were never in a relationship in the past. This also is a single parent, which you know around here I love a single parent romance. And this one, the hero is the single parent and he has a 9-year-old daughter. And also sports and workplace romance because the hero, he was a former like college football star who then went on to become the head coach of the football team back at the college that he graduated from. So she works for the school as well and is an admin for most of the school's sporting programs. So this one I actually ended up giving 5 stars to. I really enjoyed it. It's not an all-time favorite Devney Perry read, but it's definitely up there as a solid 5-star. Maybe like low 5-star, but like there was nothing I could fault with this read. I just enjoyed it and loved it so much. So in this we meet Ford and Millie, the hero and the heroine, in the prologue. They're in college together. They're best friends, but both of them have feelings for one another that is more than friendly. And the hero even talks about like how he had a girlfriend, but now that he's spending this time around Millie, he's realizing that he has feelings for her. And so he ends up breaking up with his girlfriend, and him and Millie share a kiss. Then Ford's world gets turned upside down when his ex-girlfriend shows up and tells him that they are pregnant. So that we then cut to 10 years later, love a time jump, and Ford is moving back to Montana from Seattle after playing football there. So he has taken on the job as the new head coach for the Treasure State Wildcats, which is the team that he played for as well in college. And with him, he's bringing his 9-year-old daughter, Joey. Like I mentioned, Ford is super surprised on his first day of work when he runs into Millie and finds out that she works for the school as well and like works for the sports programs. So right away, Ford is determined to get Millie back in his life, but Millie is the one who's a little more hesitant because in the past, like when he found out that his ex-girlfriend was pregnant, like he didn't tell Millie. She found out from other people. found out that he left. So she definitely felt like left behind being his best friend. Right away, Ford and Millie kind of fall back easily into their friendship together. Ford is definitely determined to get her back in his life and doesn't take no for an answer. And then his daughter Joey actually helps him out as well, because like they'll run into one another at the grocery store, and his daughter's like, oh, do you know how to bake cookies? Because like my dad can't. Can you come over and help us? So his daughter kind of creates these situations that they can all be together, which I love that in a single parent romance. There are lots of like little cute moments of bonding between Millie and Joey as well, as Millie does come over and help bake cookies with them. They chat about like all things like girly and fingernail polish and like all of that. I understood Ford's character. I loved how he put his daughter first at all times, like even in the past with his ex-girlfriend, like he always put his child first. And so yeah, he did leave Millie, but like it was for good reason, like for his child. Even in present day as well, with his job and his life, like he's always thinking of his daughter first, especially with his relationship with Millie as well. Like he wants to make sure his daughter is okay with it. I just loved seeing that for a hero who is a father. So yeah, this one just made me super happy. It was a great start to the new series from Devney Perry. I know she did release like the cover reveal and the blurb for the next book in the series, which is Blitz, and it's supposed to come out next spring, I believe, of 2024. Of course, that's subject to change because Devney writes so fast, and a lot of the times her books end up coming out earlier than expected. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. This was just solid. Not like an all-time favorite of hers for me, but like just a solid 5 stars. I had 0 issues with it. Like I loved all the tropes. It made me happy. It was an easy listen. Like can't complain. And I did do the audiobook for this one, so it's narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Ava Erickson. Loved it. They always do a fantastic job. So 5 stars for Coach by Devney Perry for me. Next, I read The Summer We Fell by Elizabeth O'Rourke. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I have read her entire backlist. I went like on a whole binge of her books last summer, and then have kept up with all of her current releases as well. So I do have a whole like author guide to her on my channel, which I'll link in the description of this video if you missed it. It was from last summer. And so she lately has been more of like a hit and miss author for me. There's definitely ones that are hits that are my favorites from her, but some of her like newer ones have been more of a miss. And so I was curious how this one was gonna fall, just because I love the tropes and was very excited for it. So this one was described as a second chance, very angsty and forbidden because the hero is the heroine's boyfriend's best friend. So this one I actually ended up giving a solid 3.5 stars to, which I think I rounded to 3 for Goodreads. The first 25% of the story, I wasn't super sold on the characters. This one does do a duet narration, which isn't my favorite personally to listen to, because it's where both narrators will like read any of their moments, like any of their dialogue in each chapter. So that kind of like threw me out of the story. I'm not used to that like narration style, which could just be a me thing, because I mean the narrators are amazing. The narrators for this are Teddy Hamilton and Samantha Brentmore. That part definitely could be a me thing, but also with this one, it is told through dual timeline. So every alternating chapter, we get the flashback of when like the couple first met or like was around one another, as well as present day. So every other chapter, we're like going to the past, back in present day, past, present day. For me, it just made it harder to connect to these characters in either timeline, because we were jumping back and forth and like leading up to something that obviously happened in the past with them that we keep like being alluded to. Okay, so that said, if you have read Elizabeth O'Rourke's other books, then you will know the heroine for this book. So Juliet is the heroine for this book, and we actually meet her in The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. So in that book, Juliet is the like famous musician who's like super successful, and that the heroine in that book, Drew, looks up to and tries to like emulate some of her career choices from. This one we do get Juliet's backstory and kind of her like trauma-filled past. So Elizabeth O'Rourke kind of has like a very different writing style. So sometimes she has that like very fun and charming and witty and just like a good time, which is like her Devil series. And with other books, like definitely her older backlist stuff, she does do like angst and like heavier emotions and vibes throughout the story. So this one is definitely heavier, and it does deal with abuse and rape in the character's past, which is mentioned throughout the story. At the beginning of the story, we see that Juliet has been taken in by a pastor and his family when she was 15 because her stepbrother was abusing her. And so while this foster pastor's family like treated her decently, they also kind of treated her like a workhorse. So they made her do tons of things for them, and she just does it like kind of feelings out of guilt, or like that she's expected to help out around the house and pull her weight. They don't like treat her terribly, but they also don't really give her a lot of slack. Like she definitely picks up so much of the housework for them. She also starts dating the pastor's son, which is Danny, and he definitely wants to fit Juliet into this like role that he sees for their future together. So one of the summers, Juliet ends up meeting Luke, which is her boyfriend Danny's best friend. He's like a surfer, and she finds out that he has come from a troubled past as well. Like he's been living on his own since he was 16. And so Luke at first comes off that he hates Juliet, like in the past chapters, or that's what she assumes, is that he hates her, but really he's kind of like disgusted or frustrated with her for hiding her true wants and desires out of her life and like kind of just appeasing the pastor and his family. So over time we do see Luke and Juliet gravitate towards one another more. Like Luke definitely understands more of where she's coming from, what she's been through, more so than her boyfriend and his family. So then in the present day chapters, we see Juliet and Luke coming together to come back and help her like sort of pseudo foster mom try to set up this orphanage. And so it has been 7 years since something happened in the past that separated Luke and Juliet. Like I mentioned, the first like quarter of this book, it was harder for me to get into. It wasn't until about like the 35-40% mark that I finally started to become invested in these characters and their stories. That's when you finally start to see some of that angst from like Luke and Juliet's past chapters. Luke was definitely the stronger character in this one for me. I had a harder time with Juliet's character. She's definitely that more like self-pitying, self-loathing, and like just filled with guilt, and like that's why she just appeases people of like out of those guilty feelings. So she was a harder one for me to get behind. Luke though, I loved him. Like I loved how he was very protective of Juliet from day one. So this one, definitely if you're not a fan of like that love triangle sort of setup and like cheating, but like they cheat together on other people. So if you're not into that, probably steer clear. Yeah, like I had a lot of mixed feelings with this one. It was just a solid 3.5 stars for me. I did like though that we do get to see some of the characters from her Devil series make appearances, which was fun. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Summer We Fell. And then lastly, I just finished up If This Is Love by Julie Ann. I loved this book so much and gave it 5 stars. This is definitely my new favorite Julie Ann book, which like I mentioned, I haven't read a ton of hers, but like this one is already at the top of the charts. So this one, as you can tell by the cover, it is a contemporary romance, but it has that Western ranch setting, which I love. We also do get an age gap in here. The hero is 8 years older than the heroine, and it also has a forbidden aspect because the hero works for this ranch. He's kind of like the right-hand man for the billionaire ranch owner, is kind of like his guy to like take care of things and just like get things done. And then the heroine is the adopted daughter of the billionaire ranch owner. And oh my god, if you love angsty, definitely pick this book up. Like the last little bit of the blurb says, "But Milo has a secret. He is not free. The man I love is marrying the woman I hate." So yeah, lots of angst in there. This was just so good. It has all those like heart-achy feelings and cowboys and the ranch setting, close proximity, the sneaking about, like stealing kisses. Ugh, so good. Like I love this book so much. So in this one we meet Indy, the heroine, when she is just 10 years old at the beginning of the story, and it's on a day that she has just lost her adopted mother. And so she's super upset, like that's the only person who Indy loved and who loved her back. Because even though like her adopted father, like the ranch owner, he's still there, he kind of treated Indy always as like a nuisance or like just a child that his wife wanted. So like it's even mentioned that he paid like $1 million to provide this daughter, Indy, for his wife. Indy knows now with like her mother figure gone that now she's just gonna like kind of fade into the background and not be loved and cared for as much as she had been. There is also the hero Milo. Milo, like I mentioned, is a ranch hand on the farm. He lives in the barn, like he takes care of whatever the billionaire ranch owner needs, who is of course Indy's adopted father. So Indy had always kind of looked up to Milo as the ranch hand who lives and works on her father's farm, like he lives in the barn. After her mother's funeral, he kind of takes her in and takes care of her. And so I liked seeing how Milo and his room in the barn and his burnt grilled cheese sandwiches just like provide this solace and comfort that Indy needs at that time in her life. Then of course, as Indy starts to grow up, we see her feelings for Milo changing. Of course, as she gets older, she starts to crush on him and all of those like wonderful teen things. And of course, that's where the angst kicks in, because not only is he older than her, he has a lot of like secrets that tie him to the ranch and tie him to the ranch owner. So he's kind of leading this life that he is put on this path and stuck in this place for reasons which of course are unveiled later in the story. So we know that Indy's father and his boss definitely have something over him, because like he is willing to do whatever it takes to appease the man, including this like arranged marriage that Indy's father decides to arrange a marriage between Milo and his niece. So yeah, like talk about tension, talk about angst, talk about like all these like heart-aching, heartbreaking moments. Like it definitely plays out in here, but so good if you're an angst queen like me. I'm just obsessed with both of these characters. I love them so much. They've been through so much. They go through so much throughout the story. I love the like secret kisses and sneaking around and just like finding comfort in one another for the time that they do have together. Like they definitely treasure the moments that they do get before, you know, their lives are going to be torn apart. We don't get the hero's POV until about 25% into the story. So the first bit, you're definitely falling for Indy. You're understanding her struggles. You feel so bad for her because of what she's been through and how much love she doesn't feel like she gets in her life. And then once we do get his POV, like you're already in love with him as well. I love seeing Indy come into her own. I loved how these two finally get their HEA. It's so worth it. All the angst, all the heartbreaking moments, like it's definitely worthwhile in the end. And I definitely teared up while finishing this book earlier today. There's a specific bit at the end where Indy asks for a few minutes with the hero's family, which ends up turning into an hour. And like once you have read that part and know what's going on, it was just so good and so beautiful. Such like a quiet little moment that just showed how much they care for one another, and I loved it. This one I actually ended up starting with the audiobook, but I did set that down at about like a third through the book just because I found the audio narrators were like a little slower than I wanted the story to be going, and so I was zooming ahead in my ebook copy and waiting for the audiobook to catch up. So I just set that aside and just read my ebook copy. But yeah, this was just so good. I love it so much. Like I'm so glad I have this physical copy, that I met Julianne and got it signed. Such a good one, definitely a favorite. Those are all my thoughts on the new releases that I just binged. So I had 2 5-stars and then the 1 3.5 star. So pretty successful. I think those were my first 5-star reads for the month, which is always exciting. So if you enjoyed this video, it was super fun to do just because I was gonna binge these anyways. And so it was a fun way to chat about the new releases all together. I might do this again later in the month because April is stacked with so many new romance releases that I'm so excited for and can't wait to dive into. So let me know if that's something you'd like to see again. And of course, also let me know if you've picked up any of these books yet. I have chatted with a couple friends on Instagram while I've been reading these other 3, like that they have read or are gonna pick up. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree with my ratings, or if you're excited to pick any of these up. I'd love to know that too. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.